Hello and welcome to My Thoughts. This is all new playlist and video series all about my thoughts. I first came up with this idea when I realised that I don't really have a place to air my thoughts on this channel other than sort of some of my vlogs, but I'm making this playlist as a sort of just a brain vomiting playlist where you can just tag along and listen to what I have to say in my head. It might not have anything to do with design whatsoever, but I'm going to be talking about different things. The videos in this playlist are going to be every Friday, and they're basically just me talking at you about smartphones, which is what we're talking about today. Like anything like that, anything that just comes to mind, and you can let me know in the description or the comments below what you want. But these videos aren't going to be too polished. They're just going to be me spewing information at you, and you can join in on the conversation by commenting down below. So in my last video, you guys voted for me to talk about smartphones. So I'm going to talk about smartphones. I remember the first proper smartphone I got, which was the iPhone 4, but I did have a BlackBerry Curve, I think, before that, and that was okay. It was on Tesco Mobile, so probably not the best carrier for BBM. But I remember getting the iPhone 4. But before then, I had the first ever generation iPod Touch, which was pretty sick. And hello? You okay? Yeah, I'm just filming. Yeah, sorry, I've got a thingy tonight anyway. I'm being interviewed at the flat tonight anyway by these people. I think it's 7:30. Okay then, see you soon. Meow. Right, okay, we're still recording, lol. Did you see that? That was incredible. That was a literal representation of what I was going to talk about today to do with smartphones. So the first smartphone I ever had was an iPhone 4, and I sort of moved on to the iPhone 5 and then the iPhone 6, which is what I've got now. You see, these companies that give us smartphones or make us pay horrendous amounts for these phones are telling us that our lives will become easier with these phones. Now, for me, it is really easy with a smartphone, and I don't know how I would do life without it. I can always ask Siri to make me a reminder for tomorrow of when I arrive home or whatever without even typing it in or pressing any buttons. But I've got a friend in my church, and he basically said this quote at some point, I think it was last year, that smartphones are actually making us more stupid in certain ways. And I totally agree with this. We rely on our smartphones so much nowadays and the internet on our smartphones that when we turn them off, it's sort of like, what do we do? Like, if the internet's off, it's like the end of the world. And I'm talking about that myself. When I don't have 3G or any form of internet to go on Instagram or to upload something, it's like the end of the world for me because I can't see anything that's going on online. I can't check emails. And I find it so crazy that something as small as this and as thin as this phone can access a database, or the world's largest database ever, which is the internet in itself. And it can check on blogs, it can check every single website, and we can get anyone's number, we can ring or contact anyone at any time on this phone or this piece of metal and glass. It freaks me out a little bit, and I think we take for granted the fact that we have smartphones. For corporations like Apple, at first the smartphone or the iPhone was something like an investment because they knew that you wouldn't just stop at buying that phone, but they wanted to add the App Store to it. Because when the iPhone 1 came out, there was no such thing as the App Store. There was just a few select apps, and I can remember them. I had the iPod Touch. The iPod Touch first generation, I think I was one of the first people in my town or like area to get one. And some people asked me what it was when I first had it. But it had the weather app. It had notes, it had a clock, and it had Safari to browse the internet. And what else did it have? It had settings. I don't even know really what else it had. Oh, photos, that was an amazing thing where we can pinch it to zoom. That was incredible. And I remember back then being so excited because it was so amazing. But nowadays, even if we had a really good phone like that, without an app store, we'll be a bit confused about the purpose of that phone. But what really amazes me is the fact that people still bought the phone. Maybe not as many people, but people still bought it even without an app store. So when Apple came into this sort of technology of the smartphone and the iPhone, they obviously knew that they could sell stuff and give opportunities for people to sell things over that phone. There is a marketplace on this phone, and people spend millions of pounds every day buying apps. It is a whole new way of making money and living. Now, smartphones are great, and I really like them. The fact that we're able to do all those things like check anything at any time. But there are some downsides to a smartphone as well, or to having an iPhone. One of the downsides that I've seen is in relationships. Now, you're out in a pub somewhere, or you're at home with your loved ones or whatever, and instead of talking, what I've realized that we all do, and like this includes me, is that we just sit and play on our phones whilst the other person's sat next to us, and we don't even engage in conversation. We also use smartphones as a comfort-based protection thing when it gets awkward. When it gets awkward, we all shove out our phones. And when we get bored or when we feel out of place, we take out our phones and play on them. We find an excuse to be on our phones. I read this fact on Facebook the other week. More kids have smartphones than they have dads. That's really sad. Smartphones are everywhere, and it's sort of seen as a right to have one nowadays. And companies are trying so hard to bring the prices down on all these different phones so we can consume on that device and make them more money. Anyway, that is my thoughts on the smartphone. If you've got any sort of thoughts or opinions, leave them down in the comment section below. I would love to hear them. Thank you so much for watching on the first episode of, the first video on the My Thoughts playlist. That's my thoughts on the smartphone. Let me know yours, and I'll catch you next week. See you in a bit.